Welcome everybody. This is the fourth of our new Zoom format meeting of an old established tradition. We did miss those first 3 months of the pandemic, but we are making up for it. We are now scheduling 2 meetings a month with 1 speaker each, instead of the once a month with 2 speakers that I used to have in the fireside room. We are a community, we are committed to each other, and we value this program as a source of deeper understanding of who we are. Tonight, Sondra Schwartz will talk about half an hour to tell us what she most would like us to know about her, and there will be time for questions. So you may use the chat box to just give your name, and I will call your name to present your questions after that, after the service. Well, or maybe waving your hand will work just as well. We're trying this out. So we are ready, and we're happy to have Sondra here, and you have a half hour if you wish.
Thank you. I will do my best to get more than 5 minutes here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program called Remarkable People. I feel like what my job here tonight is tell you about all the remarkable people I've met in my life, because as I went out into the world, I started to seek guidance because I didn't feel like I had enough. I still don't feel like I had enough, but I will tell you a little bit about myself and my childhood. And I have done many, many jobs in my life. I've been all over the world in a way, and I'm very fortunate to be alive and well. I have a grandson who's going to be 12 months old in a month, and I'm thrilled. And I'm a quilter, so what I made for him for his first birthday is The Little Prince.
Oh, wow.
The cotton book of The Little Prince. And one of the most favorite pages of my daughter is where it says, "What is essential is invisible to the eye." So I will start by talking a little bit about racism and anti-racism, because I think we have to talk about that every day for the rest of our lives. When I was 15, I was a member of CORE, Congress on Racial Equality, in Columbus, Ohio, which was a place of covert racism. There was a roller skating rink for kids that were my age, 15, where they didn't let Black or any other students but white students and families join. And I went to an organization called CORE, Congress on Racial Equality, and we demonstrated and we did test cases. We walked up with 2 whites and they let us in, and then we walked up with a Black and a white and they didn't let us in, and we did all these test cases. And then we demonstrated and we picketed and we carried pamphlets and we taught people and we blocked the entrance as much as we could. At 15, after 6 weeks, approximately, it's been a long time, they closed down the skating rink and reopened it. And our group, which was multi-generational and multi-diverse community, all went in together and all skated together. That was 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was a great beginning for me as a teenager to recognize that I had some ability to help change the world. After that, I got a job a couple of years later in a summer camp in Umatilla, Florida, which was overt racism, not covert racism. And I went to camp. It was a Jewish camp, and I went there thinking I was going to be a swimming waterfront counselor, which I've done a lot of. And it was time to do laundry, but they didn't have a laundry at the camp, so they sent us to town. And when we got to town, there we were standing in front of 2 buildings, and one said white clothes and one said colored clothes. And for a moment, I said to myself, why would you put the reds and blues in one building and the whites in another? But that was just a split second. I recognized that I was in a town that I didn't want to be in anymore. The drinking fountain said blacks only and whites only. So that was shocking to me. I was young and idealistic, and I hoped for a better world, and I didn't want to go back to that place. So that was when I was 17. I want to talk a lot about art because art really mattered to me all throughout my life. I started writing when I was 17. I was sitting in a pear tree looking at the full moon at the summer camp right after I saw this, and I wrote a poem about this. And that was the beginning of my writing. I kept a journal my whole life except for the 20 years from the time I was pregnant till my daughter was 21. And I didn't have time to write in my journal then, but I want to go back now and say I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Some of you know that, some of you don't. I was born in 1944, and I believe that I was born to replace people who died in the Holocaust. And every time I've had a challenge or a difficult time or wanted to jump off the earth and disappear because my life was not going the way I wanted it to, I reminded myself that I was here, born in 1944, to replace this people and that I had a purpose here. When I was very young, my parents were social workers, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom a lot of the time, but she was a social worker first. And she and my dad, who was the assistant director at the Jewish Community Center, met in Pennsylvania, I think Pittsburgh, but maybe not, I'm not sure. They met in Pennsylvania, and they met in the theater. And my dad was a director and my mom was an actress, and we all have theater. I have two brothers, and we all have theater in our lives. And I've done a lot of theater, and I've directed some theater. I'm just going to take a moment here to say my favorite play I directed was called Bury the Dead by Irwin Shaw. Bury the Dead was written in 1943, I think. And it was about 8 soldiers that refused to be buried because they were so young they hadn't had a chance to live yet. I directed this play in a high school in Clayton Valley High School in Concord in 1981. And then I directed it again, the same play, but in a different high school at Skyline High School in Oakland in 2003. The actors all did a great job. The parents and the kids were very different in both schools, but the experience of directing the show, which was brought to me after my father died by my brother Jeff, he brought me the play. He said, "This was Dad's, I thought you might want it." So directing it was connecting to my dad, which was a very wonderful thing. I'm gonna jump back into my childhood. When I was, the first 5 years of my life, I think were very, very strong and wonderful. I feel that whatever sanity I have during this pandemic is because I had a good first 5 years. When I was 6, my mom was misdiagnosed with ovarian cancer. She did not have it, but she was told she had it. And I may not have all the information exactly correct because I frequently do not, especially when my older brother's here. He usually will remind me what's true from his perspective, but since I'm the only one that's talking right now, I get to say what I think. So after 2 years of being treated, of my mom getting treatments in some office somewhere, my parents went to the office, and the doctor was gone, the machinery was gone, and the office was bare, and there was no ovarian cancer. It was a quack. And it was not, this didn't really happen. It just happened to me. I feel like it happened to me. It happened to us, but the terrible trauma of watching what happened after that caused me a great deal of discomfort, and I ran away. I ran away for years. My mom was put in a sanitarium for 6 weeks, and I was feeling that I was abandoned, and I was horrified that I didn't know what to do with myself. So as I grew older and came to California and became addicted to several different things, I got into a recovery program for alcohol and drugs and sex and love, and started working on a program where I read a book called Coming Home by John Bradshaw. and coming home tells us as addicts that we can heal our inner child. And the way to heal your inner child is to find in a visual experience, to find that child and hold them and help them to feel less afraid. I did that for 2 minutes a night every time I woke up in the night over 20 years, and did a lot of healing of my inner child. That didn't stop the trouble, but it certainly took me to a place that allowed me to understand at least where I'd come from. The people I went to meetings with talked about their childhood and how they were either abandoned or mistreated or neglected. And when people talk about their story, there's so many parts of each person's story that feels like I myself can identify with it, that I realized I had work to do and people to do it with. And I'm now in a program called Codependence Anonymous. And Codependence Anonymous is a program in which the major requirement is that you want to have a healthy and equal relationship with other people. So I'm working on that. And thank all of you, because all of you fit into that category. For me, I get to have friends and family that I feel safe with and adore and feel welcome in the community. This Unitarian Church is a very important place for me. When I was, my daughter was 2 and a half in 1987, my husband, who was a Southern Baptist, and I'm Jewish, and two very far apart perspectives, we joined the Unitarian Church in Oakland, and we knew we needed a village to raise our daughter, and they were wonderful, and they were full of crafts and art and prayer and joy and singing, and they had a little bit from every religion, and I got a lot out of being there. But after 20 years, my husband and I got divorced, which I needed to do, and he was the president of the board of trustees, but I was just the person who got divorced. So he told me that if people get divorced in the Unitarian Church, one of the people has to leave. So I left and went to the temple and became sisterhood president at the Jewish temple in San Leandro. I want to jump back to high school. My junior year in high school, I had a wonderful teacher named Elwin Failer, who read us Robert Frost, and he said, "Two roads diverged into the wood, I took the one less traveled by." And that made all the difference. Well, I thought that was a good idea. And I'm sorry that I did, because I took the road less traveled by, and it did make all the difference. And I've gone a lot of ways that I would change if I could go back and do it again. But I have my daughter, so I won't go back and do it again. I grew up believing in the Hollywood stories, the ones about the Second World War. I thought I was supposed to grow up and be a war bride. I thought I was supposed to grow up and be the partner of somebody in the war. And that happened. I must have made it happen, but it happened. And I went to Hawaii for 3 R&Rs. R&Rs are 5 days long. My partner was a clarinet player who played in the 6th Army Band in Vietnam. He was there for a year, and I lived in Hawaii for 6 months. And got to see him 3 times. I tried to talk him out of going back each time. I was not successful. When we came back to San Francisco after his year in Vietnam, we went to Virginia to his parents' house and got married there. And then we bought a motorcycle and took a motorcycle trip from San Francisco through all of California, all of Mexico, and 3 countries in Central America. We ended up in trouble with a little accident. And I found somebody who had a father in a church who had a ham radio. And I knew that my older brother, his wife, had a father who operated the ham radio. So we called the ham radio, used the ham radio to call that person who called Bobby, who's Nikki's wife, and Nikki sent us some money. I probably never thanked you for it. Thank you for whatever you sent me. I'm home. I've been searching for home all my life. I really haven't found it, although I live next to Muir Woods, right across the street from Muir Woods, and today I walked for 2 miles, trying to figure out how I was going to verbalize this whole experience. And I want to jump now to college. I went to Ohio. I went to many colleges. I've had 30 jobs. I've probably been to 30 colleges. I started out at Ohio University because that's where Nikki went. And I thought I should do what he did because I didn't really, I will say I didn't know how to plan. I didn't certainly know how to set boundaries for myself. I'm starting to learn that at 75. But I went to Ohio University, and my freshman year, there was a teacher there who said, they shouldn't ask freshmen to write because they haven't lived yet. So you have to write. To be a good writer, you have to write about what you've experienced. So go out into the world and live, and then you'll have something to write about. So I listened to him, and after my second year, which was at Ohio State University, by the way, at Ohio State University, I was on the women's gymnastics team. I got to compete. This is 1963. I got to compete in floor exercises. I was very excited. And I was in the dance major program, and I wanted to dance. I've danced my whole life. And then I went, I quit college to go have some experience in the world, and I got a job on a sailing ship that went from Miami, Florida, actually Fort Lauderdale, to the Bahama Islands. And I worked as a stewardess. I had just dyed my hair back from blonde to chalky black, and I got a job as a stewardess, and that was a terrible job, but I was in the middle of the ocean riding on a sailboat, and I had been sent by the Columbus, Ohio Jewish Community Center to the small craft school at Culver Military Academy when I was 17, and they taught us to sail and canoe and teach both. So I went to Florida, and I lost my mind there. So I got hooked up with some stupid asshole and spent a year with him. And then he hit me once, and I learned from someone that once they hit you, you leave. If they hit you once, you leave. You don't give them a chance to get hit again. And I didn't know anybody, and I had left my family behind, so I was isolated. One other wonderful piece of knowledge, excuse me for jumping around, but I don't know how to do this any other way. Are you mostly following? Does somebody say yes or thank you?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Maya. So my art history teacher at Ohio State showed us all this fabulous art history, and he said, when you go to Siena, Italy, go to the city hall and look out over the countryside, and you will feel like a 2-inch piece of jewelry in a velvet jewelry box. And 40 years later, after I retired, I went to Siena, Italy, and I felt like a 2-inch piece of jewelry in a velvet jewelry box. So I had a wonderful experience there. Teaching was a challenge. As I said, I grew up in the rolling hills of Columbus, Ohio in the 50s, but I taught in Oakland in the 80s, 90s, and 0 to 10. I taught for really 40 years. And I marched to a different drummer, and the kids liked that. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. How many minutes am I at? Could somebody tell me?
Yes, we have 5 more minutes.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm all right. So I have 100 stories, but I won't tell them all because I want to show my art. So I wrote a water safety and boating program for the disabled people in 1978, and it was funded by the Department of the Interior's for $300,000.
Wow.
And it is still running at this point. And I mean, well, not today, of course, not during the pandemic, but up until the pandemic, it was still running. and the program was wonderful. I'm going to stop this and show some art. When I was married and living with my friend and partner in Hawaii, he sent me from Vietnam a piece of music. This is a classical piece of music. I know you can't see it very well. And I put it in a book when I retired and wrote a book called A Song in Her Head, about a little mouse that had a song in her head and she needed somebody to teach her how to play it. So I published that book as part of my retirement. And while I'm talking about retirement, besides going to Italy and taking an oil painting class for 2 weeks and sitting still for 8 hours a day, which I never did when I taught, I also took 4 woodshop classes and made a barrister bookcase with sliding glass doors. I took a Photoshop class with 18-year-olds and got an A in it because they all helped me. And I published 5 books. And I also took 5 applique classes with a wonderful teacher. The second book was called The Tales of Grandma Butterfly. When my daughter and I would go places, I would tell her a story to help her work out issues and problems she had. And I illustrated and published this book called The Tales of Grandma Butterfly.
Oh.
Beautiful.
The third book was a book I did with my students because they said they were publishing bilingual books more than anything else, called Light Up the Sky. And in Spanish, it was Se Iluminan el Cielo. So it's Spanish and English about how whales flapped their tail and the plankton went up in the sky and became the stars. So there's a picture of that. Then I came to the Unitarian Church to hear Marcus, and I was introduced to poetry, my own poetry. I read poetry the first year I was there, and I decided to write, it made me cry to read my own poetry, so I decided to write a memoir, a book, and this is called Me, Myself, and I. And it's got all my poetry in it, and Jim and Janice and some other people bought one, which made me feel very happy. And there's music in it that my mother loved, and I want to just stop and say, I spent my whole life not knowing where I was going or what I was doing. I did a lot. I drove a yellow cab and picked up the Temptations, but I didn't have a goal. I need 2 more minutes. Can I have 2 more minutes?
Yes. Actually, you have 4 more minutes.
Oh, bless your heart. Okay.
5
So,
minutes. Go.
thank you. So now I forgot what I was going to say. So I'll just show you the art. So if you can see this, can you see this?
Yes.
This quilt, I made this 2 years ago. It's a tree with a full moon. The night before I left Tuscany, when I took the oil painting class, I saw the moon descend behind a bell tower, and I painted this in 2 hours right before we left Tuscany when I went to Venice, and the teacher showed us how to put wet oil paint in a box to take it home without it getting messed up.
Well,
So this is the bell tower across from where we were, the Agriturismo where we were staying.
wow.
So I spent my life learning about alternatives to chemical medicine because I wouldn't go to doctors because I didn't trust them, because my mother taught me not to trust. She taught me not to trust, and I didn't trust her or anybody else. And I did, as a 6-year-old, I was trying to tell her the people she thought were following her were not following her, and that I was trying to tell myself I shouldn't grow up and be her. But I am her in a lot of good ways and a lot of bad ways. I cut my own hair, which my mom did herself for the last 10 years. She made all her own clothes by hand without a machine at the end, by sewing, and I'm a seamstress. And I'm so grateful that all of you were able to put up with me here. And I want to say, this book, I'm going to say at the end because it'll blow your mind and then you won't know what to do. It says, this is the title, A Woman Awakening, Orgasmic Evolution of a Time Traveler. It's my orgasmic history. I'm not selling it. I'm just showing it to you. And thank you for being here and listening, and all the people that came from other places. You probably didn't hear anything you didn't already know, but I love you for coming here and letting me see your faces.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow.
I wish I were there to give you a hug. because
Me
it was
too.
so
I
impressive.
really need a hug. I'm supposed to get 12 hugs a day, And I've only gotten one. I give myself 12, but thank you, Nani.
Well, I'll start out and then just raise
Start
your
with-
hand and I'll let you speak.
This is what happens all the time.
I am so glad that you found our congregation. Just what was it that brought you right to us?
Well, I was looking for an apartment, which I do every 2 years, it seems like. And I stopped at the church to park my car because I was looking at an apartment right there. And Mary Gilstrap told me that there was a new minister coming whose name was Marcus Leifert. And you know, I've known Marcus since he was 4 years old. And I was one of the teachers in his classes. And I knew that he was a wise soul. And he gives the most incredible sermons I've ever heard from anyone. And that's how, and I came the first day that he came. And that's how I got there. And then I did service. So I would do anything I could to help at all the wonderful events. And I donated some things for the service auction. So that's how I got there. And I got to meet a lot of wonderful people, all of you.
Thank you.
That was an incredible story of your life. Unbelievable.
Diana, you want to ask a question?
Oh, no, I was just commenting that that was an incredible story.
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to let me say that I'm totally impressed that at 15, you were able to deal with CORE, which all of us have heard of and admired, and make such an incredible impact when you were a teenager. Very impressive, and then you lived your whole life following it up. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be with you and in community. Because we have more work to do, you know.
Of course.
Sondra, do you mind repeating that quotation that you started out with? I didn't understand it.
I'm not sure what it was. I don't have it written down here.
Oh, there was
What was the subject?
A book that you got
Oh,
off.
Robert Frost?
Maybe, yeah.
Two roads diverge into the wood. I took the one less traveled by.
Actually, it was the one before that.
Oh, sorry.
It was before that.
That wasn't John Bradshaw, was it?
That was later.
That was later.
Well, it'll come to you, and you'll maybe send me a note.
I have no idea what it was. Sorry.
Well, it'll come.
But thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been very fascinating, wonderful life. Wow.
Big lot of activity. Sometimes I think I never did anything, and then I started writing down all this, and I realized I've done a few things. Jim, is your hand up?
Oh, I just want to say, I see your life as like a work of art, and how, you know, your experiences are valued much more than achievements. And like the work of art that you shared with us is just beautiful. On a little more mundane, how did you get your hair done so beautifully?
Yes, it's gorgeous.
Oh, well, I haven't cut it in 6 months. You're so fun. And today I knew I had to wash it, and I didn't have time to do anything to it. So I just sat outside in the air, and this is what I got.
Wow.
Wow.
My mom had great hair. That's what I must say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very.
Did you get to see your daughter this year? And she's in Germany.
Saw her for 2 weeks in October, and I can hardly wait to see her again. Yes, the baby's going to be 12 months old, 1 month from yesterday.
Sondra, it's Maya from Florida.
Hi.
Hi. There were important parts of your story that I didn't know. I didn't realize about your mom getting scammed for those years by the doctor. And I do want to talk to you more about it later. But I'm so impressed with how open you are. And I have to say, I don't know that I could be so open if my brother were attending.
Well, you might surprise yourself. I surprised myself.
A good brother.
Well, I knew
Ted.
half of it already.
Only half.
Only
Ted is-
half. Maybe only 49%.
Ted,
I think, I learned something new in a way. I always felt so sorry for people who undergo addictions when, they have these miserable experiences as children, as you described, and then one sort of understands how they acquired addictions to get away from those experiences. But the way you did it is you used those experiences in a way to do
it's
feel
interesting.
more in your life afterwards. That was really powerful.
I studied for 10 years with Anna Halprin, who's now 100 years old and still dancing. And she teaches healing movement for trauma. And we did journal writing and drawing of self-portraits and movement in community for healing. And she taught such great community building skills that I used those community building skills in my classroom. The day after I went to her on Sunday, I would use it in my classroom on Monday. She was amazing.
Oh, great. We love to have you in our community.
And I want to teach Qigong to everybody who wants to learn it because it's so useful. I didn't mention that. Lisa?
Anna Halpern, it's interesting because there was a lady that was helping me in my house that worked for her, and she's still working for her. And she says, Anna is still going strong at 100. And it was just amazing, the connection there.
Yes.
Ted,
Oh, well,
Ted's asking something, Nani.
Sondra, did you finish your schooling? I heard Ohio University and Ohio State.
Oh, I didn't finish explaining. No, when I was in Hawaii, I went to the university. I figured if my husband died in Vietnam, I would not want to go home and cry. I would go forward to Japan. So I studied Japanese and flower arranging and tea ceremony, all in Japanese. They didn't translate. I did that. That was just a semester. Then I went back. I came back to Berkeley and I got my bachelor's degree in theater and dance and Spanish. I got a master's degree in adult education, and I went to Mexico City to learn Spanish and studied at the Museum of Anthropology to learn to communicate to and taught, did my student teaching in Mexico City at the school called Escuela 112, 112. So I have an education that's amazing. And after that, I studied Tibetan Buddhism for a year and meditated 45 minutes a day for a whole year to learn how to meditate and find silence and stillness.
wow. And I tried to meditate for 5 minutes. And good for you. That's fantastic.
Thank you all. Diana?
Diana, yeah.
I say, well, what else did you do? I mean,
Oh, I collected tolls on the Bay Bridge, and I was a waitress for 8 years to work my way through school. And I taught swimming when I was 16, and when I was 75 last summer, I taught swimming at the Mount Tam Racket Club to babies and their parents.
Oh,
And I taught gymnastics I taught a high school girls gymnastics team, women's gymnastics team in 1981, and we won the league that year. I was their coach.
oh.
And there's 7 or 8 other things. I'll tell you the next time I see you.
Raise your hand.
you could tell us now.
I have a list here.
Tell us about your synchronized swimming.
Oh,
Yes.
synchronized swimming. Well, when I was 6, the person in charge of the swimming pool was the same height I am now. So she was there, Peggy Pierce. She was my, what do you call it? Second mother, I would say. When my mother wasn't a mother, I think Peggy Pierce was my mother. She taught me to swim. And the first show I was in, she put me on a surfboard in an indoor pool and had me throw out petals. I was 6. Throw out petals because it was Hawaiian theme. And then she taught me to synchronize swim, to how to do everything. And then I started performing at the Jewish Community Center in the outdoor pool with the other synchronized swimmers. And then we went to the Unitarian church. This is interesting. We went to the Unitarian church, and there was for the spring retreat or the summer retreat, 5 years in a row. And my daughter was about 11, and we, excuse the expression for anybody who can't handle this, we went naked without our swimming suits. So my daughter said, "Mom, we should call ourselves the Flying Breasts." And I thought, oh my God, why should I know this? And so we called ourselves the Flying Breasts. And this is a funny story. So 2 weeks ago, I went to the Unitarian virtual retreat online from Oakland. And the woman in charge was somebody who had swum with me in that. And she introduced me to the rest of the group as the one who created the Flying Breasts. So there's a whole lot happening in synchronized swimming. I love it. I love it. Thanks for asking about it.
Well,
I did synchronized swimming, but with a bathing suit on.
Yes, that's how most people do it.
So did
That's
I
how
do
it
synchronized
now,
swimming.
actually.
I love synchronized swimming.
Oh,
That's,
good. Well,
I had
try
a
it.
varsity letter in it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Where?
It's Swarthmore College.
Oh, wonderful.
So good for you. I was interested, Sondra, to hear your.
Oh, how nice. Well, if I had it to do over again, I think I would go to Oberlin College in Ohio and not
Yeah.
go to California at all.
Oberlin's wonderful.
Yeah.
well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for arranging your story in this lively fashion. It just came out so direct and so true. A most remarkable story indeed.
Incredible.
Oh, thank you. Ted, I did not know John Simon, not by name anyway.
No, I said it. No, he was.
Oh,
So I want to thank the people who helped with this. Kim Holscher and Carol Kerr and Jeanette all helped with the publicity. We will be here Tuesday, August 11th, the second Tuesday, to hear Ginny Job tell her story.
Yay.
And on Friday, August 28th, to hear Julie Busey tell her story. And if you're interested in hearing a specific person as our speaker in the future, please let Kim Holscher or myself let us know. I have September all filled up already, but the future.
Nani,
Yes.
what are your dates?
Second Tuesday and fourth Friday. So in August, it will be 11th, Tuesday 11th for Ginny Job.
What's the
And
name of this?
August,
Thank you.
Friday, August 28th for Julie Busey.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be the same format as today, a half hour of talk and then just a little bit of time for questions. And this was a rich evening for me. I hope it was for most of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Yes, I
you.
just want to thank Sondra for her remarkable life.
Yes, yes.
Really remarkable.
thank you for
Yeah.
being in my life these days. You are the most important people for me. So thank you.
Great. This was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sondra.
You're all welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
See you in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning.
Bye.
Tomorrow morning, what, oh, circle. Mm.
That was truly amazing, Sondra. Thank you so much.
Oh, Ann, it's so nice to have you here. I feel like you're part of my very important group.
Thank you. Thank you. You're just so extraordinarily talented and generous and loving and incredibly adventurous. Oh my God.
Yes, I had more courage than brains when I was younger.
Well, it's certainly a lot more courage than I did. I was sitting here thinking, is anyone going to be willing to follow this? Thank you. And I think someone said what was so outstanding was how candid you were, how trusting you were, how open and totally unpretentious, you know, just wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, it's very nice to be told, be given feedback like that. It means a great deal to me. When I first said it to myself as I walked in the woods, I cried as I was telling myself this story because I thought, oh, I can't say that. Oh, I shouldn't say that. But I picked and chose.
Yeah, you know, you're among Unitarians.
I know, that's a blessing. Nikki, how are your family? How's your Cleveland? Is Cleveland still there?
Cleveland's still here.
Okay.
What's happening in Ohio now? What's your COVID stuff going on?
We had a governor who spent his whole career as a very bland conservative Republican, who served in a lot of different offices without accomplishing much, but who rose to this occasion and exerted some leadership in terms of closing things up.
That's right.
A lot of resistance from his own party. And so Ohio escaped the fate of some of the other states that had huge incidents of infection and so on. Unfortunately, in recent weeks, he's kind of weakened and given in to the elements of his party who criticized him for doing what he did, and so he's kind of waffled in the last couple of weeks on such things like distancing and masks and so on. So the story isn't, you know, we don't have final returns yet in Ohio, and who knows what's going to happen.
I went to school there. I did my doctoral work at Kent's, but I actually did some teaching at the university in Cleveland. And so I have many, many happy memories from being there. My husband and I lived in Gates Mills, which is on the,
right.
Yeah. And then we moved down to a very rural town in central eastern Ohio, about an hour south of Canton and to the east in the foothills of the Alleghenies. It was kind of like Kentucky, you know, it was very, very rural. And
it was Appalachian.
Yeah, and I met many of the people who now have some, what I think are misguided notions about the man that we have in the White House. And I also understand some of where they're coming from. So yeah, that was a really eye-opening experience for me being there.
Did you say you did your doctoral work at Kent State?
I did, yes, I did. Yeah, and then I did a postdoctoral fellowship at Case Western, and that's how I happened to get connected there. I couldn't afford to go to Case Western. It was so expensive, and I was able to get a fellowship at—
It's very expensive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I had lived all over Ohio before we wound up in Cleveland, but I had had no contact with Kent State until the shooting of the 4 students in 1970.
Yeah.
And I was active in the ACLU at the time and ended up getting involved in a number of the cases, civil liberties cases, that arose out of the Kent State episode. And the reaction of the local community was to blame the students. And they indicted 24 students and 1 faculty member for rioting.
Does it sound familiar, what's happening now?
Yeah, a little. And one of the students who was indicted was the student body president, and I represented him in the prosecution.
Wow.
The case was ultimately dismissed by the state. We never went to trial, but he was a very impressive young man. and so ironically, I came to know Kent State better than some of the schools where I had been a student or faculty member. And it ended up with our youngest son going to Kent State for a master's degree in journalism. And then our oldest granddaughter, going to Kent State to complete her undergraduate education. So I came away with very favorable feelings about Kent State, which played an important role in our family.
Well, it's interesting because I went to Antioch College, and it was right after this incident at Kent State, and I remember hearing a lot about it, and there was like demonstrations and so on at Antioch because of that. And
as Sondra told you, we grew up in Columbus, and our parents were theater buffs, and there was a period in the late, I think it was the 50s, when Antioch College had an outdoor summer theater and performed over a 5-year period the entire works of Shakespeare.
And they did that even when I was there, which is in the 70s. Yeah, they had
And we went. It wasn't very far from Columbus to Yellow Springs. Yeah. So we went to a couple shows there. Yeah. One of the ones, the one I remember was The Tempest. It was a summer night and the wind was blowing and it was just like, it was just perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I want to know, how did you sit on the sidelines watching this sister of yours have all of her adventures?
Well, I didn't sit on the
sometimes.
I didn't sit on the sidelines, but I led a somewhat more linear life.
An interesting answer to part of that question is that Nicky would take his family skiing and I was a single, unhappy, alone person, and he would send me tickets to ski and meet them for a week, 5 years in a row, and I had tickets to ski, and I got to be with his kids and got to be the aunt, and it was just wonderful to be part of his family. So it was a very rich time for me.
Yeah.
Sondra, I wanted to know, how long did you go to the Oakland UU Church? How many years?
20 years. 20.
20 years.
20.
Yeah. And Marcus was a little kid at that point.
Marcus was from 4 to 20.
Okay, and so you knew him the whole.
I got to watch him in all of his colors of coats.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a friend of my daughter's. He's still a friend of my daughter's. So they're community. They have a small community. 4 of the women now in that community, including Emily, now have 5. There's 5 babies from that community, all being born this year.
Uh-huh.
Sondra, you probably told us, but were you raised in any religion?
I didn't talk about this. My dad and I went to temple. This is my memory. Every Friday night to Tifereth Israel in Columbus, and I spent the first 18 years of my life very Jewish culturally, at least, and really in the temple. I really expected the rabbi to marry me. The rabbi was the kind of rabbi that was there at birth and there at the wedding, and I expected to have him in my life, not the rabbi, but the community, my whole life. And I didn't get to follow that because I ran away. I was so hurt that I ran away, and I didn't even know I ran away till 40 years later. So it's very interesting that I woke up one day saying, what am I doing in California? Well, my dad had lived here. But anyway, my dad gave me a lot of rich Jewish strength and cultural ability. And I say the Kaddish, which is something he said for his parents. When my dad died in 1974, I was working at a Jewish summer camp at St. Helena, California, and I was the arts and crafts director. And the head of the camp stood next to me and said Kaddish in my ear every night when I had to say it for a month, for the summer. You say it for a year. It really was a good education.
Mm-hmm. But you're such a Unitarian.
I have become a Unitarian. They call it a Junitarian too.
You're a Unitarian. As a matter of fact.
And
yeah,
I'm a
some-
Buddhist, so I'm a Buddhist Jewish Unitarian. So that's a good combination.
I can relate my entire experience with the Unitarian Church in about 2 minutes.
Oh, good.
When I was a law professor at the University of Toledo, I was invited by the Unitarian Church in Lima, Ohio, which is south and west of Toledo, to come speak to them, give a talk on civil rights and civil liberties. It was a Sunday morning, and when I got there, I discovered that I was the service.
I bet you pulled it off.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I went to the Unitarian Church in Kensington,
Yeah.
for one visit, right after I left the Unitarian Church in Oakland, I went for one day, and the rabbi at the temple I was going to be sisterhood president at was there and spoke to people after the service. And he said, if any of you are Jewish and want to come home, come to my temple. And I did. I got invited by him and came there.
Interesting.
So
I thought you were going to say there was a rabbi at the Unitarian Church.
well, there probably is. Well, the minister at the Unitarian Church in Oakland was Jewish, so that was close to their rabbi.
Sondra took me and my wife when we were in California for, I think it was her 30th birthday, took us to the Glide Memorial Methodist Church in San Francisco, which had a rabbi in residence.
And a choir, an extraordinary choir of theater.
So Sondra, when you were in Oakland, was that the Keller Isaacs that was the?
Yes, Rob and Jan Eller Isaacs.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I was gonna. Who is your friend here, Maya? That's visiting.
Maya,
Maya.
are you still here, Maya?
Well, her picture's still there. But was
She might have fallen asleep. She was going to set her alarm. Maya, are you still there? Well, I know her since I was 15.
Wait a minute. I haven't fallen asleep. I'm listening to everybody. I'm in the bathtub. Give me a second. I want to get out of the bathtub.
Is your bathtub under the Eiffel Tower?
It is. It is.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a friend of yours.
Maya and I were co-chairwomen at 15 of Councilettes, which is the Council of Jewish Women's High School group.
Okay.
And we've been friends ever since we were 15.
That's just really.
That really says a lot about both of you. That really does, to have a friendship that long. Yeah. Wow.
Okay, go. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Lisa.
We'll see you in the morning.
Not in the morning. Sunday.
Sunday morning.
I'll
Okay.
see you when I see you. I'll hug you when I'm allowed to hug you.
Whatever that's gonna be.
Maybe a while.
I know, about a year and a half, I figure.
I had no idea you wrote all of those books, though. I'm so glad you showed them to us.
Oh, thank you for looking. Thank you for saying that you could see them.
Yeah.
When we ever get back together, I would really love to see some of them. Yeah.
I will bring them when we are allowed to be in the same,
Good.
8 feet apart. I'll just put them on the table and you can go look at them.
Okay, good. That sounds wonderful.
Kids.
Thank you, Anne, for joining.
If we had done this live, you could have had them on display and people could have looked at them. And
Yes, that's what I planned.
Well, stay well, everybody, and thank you for
Bye.
appreciating my sister.
It's wonderful you come.
Thank you for coming.
I love
Love
your
you.
I wish I was still there. I actually miss it. I miss being there. And people don't understand how beautiful Ohio is. When you were talking before about the hills of Ohio, oh my God. When we were there, I'm a musician and I belonged to a music group, and we were like scattered around the central part of the state. And we would go to each other's houses. And that's when I first discovered Ohio. I would be driving along and I could see on both sides gorgeous views. And then I'd come to the top of the hill and I would go, oh my God, it was so beautiful. And I'd come to the top of the next hill. I mean, it's such a beautiful state. I don't know why people go to Vermont to see colors. They should come to Ohio. Honestly, it blows my mind. But maybe it's just as well, no crowds. Or anyway, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Wonderful sister. She's a piece of work.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good way to describe me.
Right.
Thanks, Nikki.
Okay. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Merle, are you still here with us?
No, I'm leaving.
Oh, well, thanks for coming.
I couldn't get the camera to work, but I'll talk to you again, Sondra.
Could you hear everything?
I could hear everything except the audio wasn't good on my side. Every sentence, there was a word missing.
Oh, no.
And then when more people left, I could hear that I don't know what was happening. And I turned it on, turned it off, unplugged the thing, but I heard most of it.
Well, I was glad I could talk about recovery and about addiction. I needed to mention that. For me, it was very important. So I'm glad I could fit that in.
I think you wowed everybody, Sondra.
I couldn't speak earlier in the day. I tried to practice and I thought, oh no, I won't be able to say anything. It was like I couldn't do it. And thank you.
You did it. And
thank you for coming.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. I sent you some chats.
Oh, chats?
Yeah.
Oh, look. Oh, here, let me see.
It's gonna
Shabbat Shalom, it's the experiences that matter. What wonderful friends and loved ones. Oh, I see. Thank you. I got it. Loved ones. Well, I got a lot of nice people at that church that I care about. So that's a good thing.
And they care about you.
And equal and healthy relationships. I get to practice that for as long as I live.
Right. And Nikki, he's the, not the oldest brother, right?
He's the oldest. Yeah, he's the oldest.
Wow.
He's very nice to be in the room with us, wasn't he?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I like his language. I like listening to him tell stories. Usually he interrupts and tells me I'm telling the story wrong, but I mentioned that and it didn't happen.
Well, just enjoy your evening, Sondra.
I'm relieved that this is over. I wanted to do it, but now I'm glad I can go forward.
You can.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. I love you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Dear Heavenly Father, would thou deign to hear, rush and order this warfare to cease. Grant, gracious God, the ushering in of the dawning of worldwide peace. Peace, peace, sweet dove of peace, let your white wings encircle our globe. God, how we pray and hope every day for the dawning of worldwide peace.
Save from the slaughter of bloodthirsty rulers, our fathers, daughters, mothers, and sons.
Grant that sweet rivers of peace may soon flow where the blood of our own now runs. Peace, peace, sweet dove of peace, let your white wings encircle our globe. God, how we pray and hope every day for the dawning of worldwide peace. Grant that the nations should ground arms of warfare and sow the battlefields with wheat. Feed the hungry of all the nations, then warfare and strife will cease. sweet dove of peace, let your white wings encircle our globe. God, how we pray and hope every day for the dawning of worldwide peace. Peace, peace, sweet dove of peace, let your white wings encircle our globe. God, how we pray and hope every day for the dawning of world.